The night lay heavy and breathless. It was Diwali, but there was no moon. A black blanket of Amavasya had swallowed the sky. Our village, small, dust-strewn, where elders sit on the shupal sharing old stories and the row of mud houses glow faintly from lamps, trembled with an uneasy hush. There were no crackers, booms. Even the little light leaking from doorways seemed diminished. People had shut their doors early, as if some unnamed fear hung in the air. Akhilesh was coming home late from the fields. The quickest way was the little path that cut through the village wood. Everyone knew that foot-worn trail since childhood. Tonight, though, the path felt deserted. Tree branches jutted out like old bones. The field still held the faint scent of mustard, but beneath it rode another tang, the acrid smell of scorched leaves and half-burned wood. Akhilesh only wanted to reach home, his mother's warm rotis, the last lamp flickering in the courtyard. They called to him like a promise. At the forest edge, something shifted. The mango and peepal branches stretched their shadows longer. The whispering of the shrubs answered like echoes. The breeze stilled as if holding its breath. Far off, tiny flames winked, not hearth fires, but something quick and dancing. Akhilesh pulled out his phone. The dim screen painted trembling shadows across his palms. Then, from the thicket, a sound of someone dancing rose. No drums, no music, but a strange beat, like nails dragged across dry wood. He hurried on, but a tightness pinched his throat. Speech wouldn't come. His chest felt parched. There was a small clearing ahead, and at its center, surrounded by firelight, a figure whirled. At first, it looked human, but her hair gleamed like oil in embers. Her eyes were hollows where reflections cavorted, and her fingernails were long, thorny blades. She danced without words, every breath enough to shake the trees. Her movement carried an ancient cruelty. Akhilesh thought of the old tale they whispered as children, the Dayan, and now the tale stood before him. When Akhilesh tried to step back, the dry leaves beneath his feet crackled. The little crackle rang sharply in the silence. The Dayan turned toward the sound. She tilted her head and regarded him as if a name were tried and found in an old ledger. A cruel smile slowly growing on her face. In an instant, she quickened. Her shadow slithered into the fissures of the trees. Akhilesh tried to cry out, but his voice was gone. His heartbeat thundered inside his ears. The Dayan drew nearer. Her breath was hot and rotten. With every step, the air around her sizzled, the rustle of leaves flaring into screams. He tried to run, but the track betrayed him. Roots snagged his ankles, the half-plowed clumps, and the field stubble snagged his clothes, as though the earth itself wanted to hold him fast. Then a dry leaf caught under his foot and tore. A sharp little crack. The sound pulled the Dayan like a hook. She turned with a bright, terrible flare in her eyes. She reached for him. Her nails glinted like tools meant to split skin and soul. She seemed to tear not cloth, but breaths. Akhilesh fought to pull free, but the path was treacherous. A root tripped his ankle. A thorny bush snagged his shirt. The Dayan closed in. Her breath washed into his ears. Hot, iron thick. Desperation made his hands fumble into his pocket. He pulled out the worn handkerchief his mother had stitched, a small square marked with a smear of tulsi tika and his mother's name on the corner.
Without thinking, he whispered the prayers his mother had taught him, a thin thread of words, Om Jai Mata Di.
The syllables gave him a small trembling strength. For a moment, the Dayan faltered. The sound cracked something within her laugh, but she did not stop. As if loosed from some fetter, she leapt, and her hands clamped around his throat. Suddenly, it felt as if dry grass had been stuffed into his windpipe. His breaths choked. Sound vanished.
Summoning every scrap of courage, Akhilesh let out one last raw cry, a childhood call he'd never stopped trusting. Ma, Durga Ma.
The shout broke like a snapped string through the forest. The Dayan uttered a sound, not human, that exploded, then crumpled into the night. Her grip loosened. Tiny flakes of ash scattered from her like falling soot, and a rag of her mask came away in gusts. She screamed, A noise that wasn't language. A high, tearing wail that broke into the dark and then went thin. She stumbled backward. Akhilesh fell to his knees, hands clawing at his throat. Where her fingers had been there was a raised, crusted mark. As if someone had drawn a finger tight around his throat in the dark and left a scar. The Dayan retreated into the woods, stumbling toward the small pond near the fields. Her gait was faltering now. The flames that trailed her dimmed as she moved closer to water. Old people say the Dayan cannot cross true water. It unravels her. As her feet touched the pond's edge, her terrible song thinned, and the water's coldness seemed to snuff her. With a last cry that broke like glass, she dissolved into the black water, or perhaps let the water swallow her up. At dawn, the villagers found him by the pond, his clothes torn, dark rings under his eyes, and that strange, stubborn mark on his throat. He sat for a long time and said almost nothing. The image of the Dayan and the forest fire kept returning in his eyes. The elders murmured that once marked by a Dayan, a man carries that night inside him always a stepped. Many folk would avoid the woods after dusk from then on. Akhilesh went home, but something in him had been hollowed out, a vacancy like the Dayan's eye sockets. He tried to speak, and sometimes his throat balked. Words would not come as they had before. People whispered that the Dayan had not released him fully, but had given him a sign, a piece of his voice, a token to carry. Every Diwali, while lamps glittered and crackers sounded through the village, Akhilesh's gaze drifted toward the trees.
Between the dark brambles, a faint silhouette sometimes showed, and whenever the world fell silent for a heartbeat, a thin whisper slipped from that shadow, as if someone were drawing his name out in a tired hiss. Akhilesh.
That whisper never went away. Akhilesh knew he had been spared, but the price exacted that night had been steep, a fragment of his voice and a blackened imprint that deepened a little with every Amavasya, a reminder that somewhere in the dark, among the dancing flames, a Dayan still chose names for herself.